All right, the recording is in progress. Welcome, everybody. This is great. We've got people all around the world. And let's see, I think the hardest would be for Polly, you in Hong Kong to join at this time, but you know, you gotta figure it out. So welcome. This is a discussion for the wrap up of the Intercollegiate Wine Business Invitational, which was the brainchild of Byron Marlowe and Carl Borchgrevink at Michigan State University. And congratulations to the winning team in Switzerland. Yay. And one of the things I'm proud to share is, hang on just one second. Let me do a screen share so you can all see. Voila. So we've got a new sponsor this year. It's Natalie Tonellery.
Nadalier Cooperage.
Nadalier Cooperage. And Chris set this up for us. So this will be the new trophy. So it'll be something that can be hung on the wall or put into the trophy case. And of course, this year's grand prize going to Cesar Ritz College.
Beautiful.
Isn't that terrific? We're really, really thrilled. And then we've also, I think I'd mentioned to you, Byron, we've got them go, Chris will be sending them out for last year also. So that will
Thank you very much, Chris.
Absolutely.
That will be terrific. Okay, so back to our scheduled program. So this is to kind of review what went into the most successful projects. Some of the areas where we think there were some weaknesses in general and strengths. And so also I'm hoping this can serve for next year for the teams that are interested to kind of see and what went into the projects. And then also to discuss potential changes and improvements. And starting with what was successful, I think that clearly the time and attention to detail, and then that combined with taking this seriously and trying to make this take on a realistic recreation of what it takes to create a brand, to create a product, to get that product to market, and also ensuring that there's a financial viability and sustainability, and then the quality of the artwork and the graphics, and attention to detail, especially on the label, and making sure that people understand. And this really goes, it doesn't matter if it's wine or not. This is for any product that you're taking to market. If it's a food product, you have to make sure your labeling and agreements, or I'm sorry, ingredients and everything are all together, and to prevent disasters as you go into the marketplace. The business plan, there are several components to a business plan. Number one, as the roadmap that it's going to provide so that your organization, your company knows what to do, how it's being done, and when it's being done. And then the goals that are to be achieved, and the goals typically being hard numbers, like how many cases, what kind of profitability, and those kind of things. So as we looked at the projects, one of the challenges for us is we know and we encourage that participants come from all levels of expertise. And this makes it really hard for us because we we want to make sure that everybody that participates gets the value out of it commensurate with their level of expertise and knowledge of the industry and of business in general. And some of the teams have people that are in the wine business and looking to increase their knowledge and so forth. Others are hospitality students and chefs and so forth, which this may not be their primary direction for their career or for their business. But nonetheless, if you're a chef, you need to know how businesses operate. And a really great chef is, if they're running their own business, they need a strategic plan, they need the guidelines. So at one level, this exercise is something that can be applied to every business, we hope. That's our intention. And we recognize when it comes to creating the awards that there's going to be teams with more or less expertise and abilities. And that's just kind of the way that goes. As far as one of our weaknesses, I made a mistake in how we're presenting the financial end of things. This year, we didn't have a separate business, workup. We just wanted the sort of top line parts of the cost of goods and the pricing. So next year, we're actually going to reinstall that those will be part of the submission process, along with the business plan, the label, the cost of goods workup, so that we can see all the details, and then the pricing schematic, taking your product from the FOB and then through the distribution chain and looking at all the costs and so forth. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. And then I wanted to also share a couple of ideas that I don't know that are logistically possible, but there's something we want to take a really close look at. Crystal at Hong Kong Polytechnic asked about the possibility of setting up something so that there could actually be a presentation of the projects and making that, I don't know if we would make that part of the grading process per se, but having a video or something that could be posted, that each team then would get a chance to introduce their team, their product, and give a brief pitch about it. The other component of the business plan, other than the strategic operating plan to be executed by the business, is to be used for pitching and finding investors and finding people to fund the business. So we're going to take this very seriously and see if we can maybe find a means by which we could then have that. And I'd love to get your feedback now or later of what do you guys think about doing a live sort of video pitch like you would be doing if you were going to an investor conference or, having something like that live. Do you guys like that idea or? Yes.
Yeah, I think it totally would make sense to also learn from that part.
Yeah, it gives it a more tangible reality around the teams because, we see the product, but we don't really see the engagement.
Yeah, I think it could be very interesting because a presentation makes presenting the project like our winery all in a writing form is quite technical and difficult, I think.
Yes. Yeah, and then really tightening up the messaging, tightening up the value proposition, and those elements. So I think what we could think about between now and next year then is how that would look, and providing sort of a template, if you will, like we do for the business plan, but more narrow. So outlining what you should pitch, how long it should take. I don't see them being more than a few minutes. Yes, Anna.
Yeah, I would totally, I think that the students, they are not expressing enough how they actually wanted to have something that would allow them opportunity to actually explain the project, because once it's on paper, it's not exactly the same. So once they pitch, it's completely different, and maybe something that you didn't understand, you know, as somebody who is grading could become more clear. Absolutely, I would say. Team, I'm sorry, I will have to run because I have a study seminar for me that is taking place at the same time. But if you don't mind, I would really love to listen to the recording.
Great.
And the students are going to be here. And once again, thank you so much for this experience. And I'm really sorry for interrupting you, but it's been really enriching. And the sessions with you, I think that's what makes a lot of difference. And I guess that, well, the guys will tell you their point of view. Sorry if they bothered you too much.
Not a problem. And that actually brings up a really great point, which you can watch in the follow-up video. I'll be sending out a link to this to everybody.
Thank you so much, Tim. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year if I don't see you in person before that.
Great.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you
Sorry.
so much. Happy holidays. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Anna brings up a really great point also for a number of the teams took advantage of the invitation to have video calls or to send questions or ask for clarifications or where to find resources. And this is in business, being able to find mentors, to have resources, to reach out and connect with people with expertise or guidance is absolutely crucial. Due to different personalities and kind of in general, some people are very adept and it's very easy for them to ask for help. Other people just sort of close in, I'm going to do it myself, we'll figure it out. So I think that's one of the other things that we really want to continue to emphasize is for everybody participating in this to reach out and to ask questions and ask for guidance in the process. We all tend to have it in our head, oh, I don't want to interrupt, I don't want to bother and so forth. And there's a clear invitation to everybody that I can speak to the classes, I can speak to the groups, I can help connect to other people who might be able to answer your questions. So that seemed to also be one of the important aspects of the best projects were those teams that were able to reach out to find guidance, to do that extra research, to find people to talk to, and then to also use that as a part of the business plan. If you're putting together a company and a team, the board of advisors and the board of directors can be a huge resource. In my own personal experiences, now that I'm the old guy in the room, so often in my career, I found I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to ask a stupid question. I didn't want to bother people. And that's not a powerful way to go forward into business. I started to observe that people that I thought had this incredible knowledge that, know way more about business than I do, I was surprised at how much research they did, how open they were to getting criticism of their work. So for me, I wouldn't want to share it because I didn't want to be criticized. But it's actually the criticism that can be the very most important thing when you get your program and so forth. And the other thing is, if you're working with a small group, things like artwork and different concepts may resonate to your team, but they don't outside, because your team has background information and a lot of ways of sort of agreements. And then when you go out into the real world and get it in front of investors and consumers and distributors and so on, it's like, wait a minute, that's not. And as part of this, I really want to congratulate the teams that stepped out and did alternative packagings, unique products, focusing on areas that aren't cliche, the Napa Valley or the Bordeaux or the things that are out there all the time. So we had some very unique projects as well. We typically do every year, but congratulations to the teams that really stepped up and we're thinking in much more modern context with products and packaging and how they're approaching their business. So why don't I open this up for any questions other than, oh, I'm sorry, one other thing. There's something we're trying to figure out. I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to get with Byron and we're going to get with our team and Chris Cutler. We've also had the idea that perhaps product could be submitted along with it, and that we could send out a kit of wines to be blended and actually participate in that, or some way to bring some reality around the actual process of blending and creating a product. There's a disconnect between what we're taught in the book knowledge about wine and what the reality is. So I think most people have this perspective that when a wine is being blended, people are sitting around a table, the winemaker and whoever's involved in the product development team, and they're tasting this blend with a little tiny bit of this and a little of this, and that it's some sort of aesthetic process. The reality is in Bordeaux as an example where assemblage is a really key part of the product. The reality is you want as much of the material that you've fermented and that you've put into barrel, you want as much of everything to go into the final blend. You're really only going to exclude wines that you think detract from the intensity or the character and whatever. So it's really a process of exclusion, not inclusion. And that's very different from the idea of, oh, a little soupçon of this and whatever. So we're trying to see if we can build a little bit more reality around that process as well. Okay, so what do you guys have for me? Questions or comments?
Tim, I have a general question. Over the years, how have you and some of those judges who've gone over the different proposals, how have you looked at what I would consider wines above the $100 price point? As long as it's built into the model and is cohesive and makes sense, I don't think that it should make a difference. But I guess generally speaking, is it the likelihood of potential sales success that you're looking at with that type of a price point with wine in general, or is it actually not a variable that makes a difference in your overall opinion?
Well, it's part of the very subjective nature of assessing the projects. And so let me give you an example of kind of what we look for if there's a high price, low production, trophy wine or boutique, or however one might classify that.
Absolutely, I like that, the trophy wine. I've seen several of my projects have put together trophy wines. I think it seems to be something that maybe those who are just getting into this think about producing.
Yes, and I'll be straight. An awful lot of my consulting that I do around the world is people that look at the cost of the grapes and in general costs of producing $100 or $200 or $300 bottle of wine. They do it kind of on the back of a napkin, and their eyes bug out. Wow, all I have to do is produce 500 cases of this, and with this huge margin at $12,000 or $1,200 a case FOB, et cetera, their eyes light up. They probably have a lot of money in the first place, or availability to the funds to do it. So they make 500 cases or 1,000 or even 10,000 cases of wine. Then they find out they've got to sell it. And so we're very open to anything from a $6 a can, kind of a product, to a $200 wine. But if it's a $200 wine, you better provide a very realistic sales and marketing plan, the use of the funds, and really understand that 500 cases as a winery seems like a drop in the bucket. But then what happens if at the end of the year, you've still got 100 cases of that, or 200 cases? And then you got the new vintage coming out and so forth. So one of the wineries that was causing quite a stir was the Napa Valley Winery. They produced, I think, around 13,000 cases, and they were trying to sell the winery. And these wines are in the $200 range, but they had an inventory of product which was aging gracefully, but it was a massive accumulation of products, so that they really had a problem. Whoever bought the winery was going to inherit all this unsold wine that they couldn't sell. And so what happens is, whether it's a $6 can of wine or whether it's a $200 wine, you've got to have a realistic plan with your marketing, with your understanding of the market. And by the way, that understanding of the market, there are two parts of the business plan template that really stand out. And that is, what is your marketing plan through the distribution chain? And I'm going to talk about that a little bit step by step. Who are your consumers? Do you really understand who they are? Because that's going to set up then what are the competitive wines, or what are you selling against? It's fair to say in the world, there is no distributor saying, oh, I don't have enough products. I need another terroir-driven, luscious mouthfeel with a story about a dog and our history in this. There is not a distributor in the world that's saying, I need more product. There's not a retailer in the world that looks around at the 1,000 or 2,000 wines that they're selling and says, oh, you know what? Please bring me more product. I need more, right? What they're trying to do is actually narrow things down, focus. And if you don't have a realistic plan, if you don't have an understanding of the market, and then a real detailed understanding of the wines you're competing against, you're going to have a really hard time of it. So in this area, one of the things that we were constantly seeing is sort of the fluff story about the wine. Oh, people will want this because it's delicious. Okay, that narrows you down to 200,000 wines that are available every day, you know, in your country. And the estimates of what's available in the world are just ridiculous now. So what is it that really is going to make a difference? So if you're selling to a distributor, whether it's a $200 wine, which they probably have lots of inventory, and the pipeline is already filled from a lot of people that are playing in that market. If you don't have a way to stand out and offer a viable business proposition of why they would want to take your wine, not that it's delicious, it's handcrafted and artisanal and blah, blah, blah. Everybody's saying that, right? So what are you offering them as a business proposition? They don't want education for their sales team. They don't want, even today, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Byron or Chris, they don't even want you to come into the market and waste their salespeople's times and waste their accounts times and so on, unless you've got something really valuable. And wine education is not it. And part of it is the illusion that you're actually going to be conducting wine education, because you're not. You're going to be training the staff to sell your wine. So it's really a marketing exercise masquerading as education that really has little or no value through the gatekeepers. All right. The restaurants, when they do a staff training, you say, oh, we'll come in and we'll taste our wines and we'll tell the staff about this. The restaurants and the retail stores have to pay the people that are going to be there. And so the idea that we're going to educate the staff and we're going to, you know, build our brand this way is very, very unrealistic. Now, this then loops back to, how do you find these things out? Who do you turn to? Well, as we recommend, going and finding a distributor or an importer and sitting down or having a phone call with them and saying, you know, hey, I'm doing I'm learning about the wine business. We're working in this competition. What's valuable to you? What would you look for if I had a $200, you know, intense red wine? What would you look for if I had a wine in a can that's, you know, a different mixture of Moscato and fruit and stuff like that? So you've really got to reach out to find out what they think. Go to a restaurant, go to several restaurants, and I advise this for everybody for the rest of your career. Every time you go into a restaurant, see if you can ask for whoever buys the wine and buy them a glass of wine. You know, it's revenue for them, and see if you can pick their brain. Go into a store, see it, and talk to the store manager. What are you looking for when you're making a decision to put a new product in? What's a criteria you use, right? And so if you're reticent to ask for help, and if you have a fear of criticism and so forth, we tend not to do that kind of footwork. But that's the really imperative stuff that's going to make a difference, again, with any product when you're going into the market.
Thank you, Tim.
What I'd love to know is how did you guys come up with a Cabernet Franc from Ohio? I'm from Ohio, so
basically we're looking for a wine that was like not ordinary, so we looked at what was like possible to to grow in the US, like in the northern, because like we didn't want to produce like in California or in Napa Valley. So we looked for like the other region where it was possible to grow wines. And we found like all the northern state, Michigan, like New York, Washington and everything. And we were like, yeah, maybe Ohio can work like with river and stuff like this. And they were like, in this region, what different can we do? And when we looked at what was produced there, we saw that they were ice wine, but most of them were, let's say, white ice wine. And we were like, yeah, we want to make a difference. So to mix a bit, as we said, in the tradition and modernity with more traditional grape. That's why we went to Cabernet Franc.
That's great. And I would like to point out also that the team contacted me and said, and just simply asked the question, where can we find pricing information on these grapes? I do a lot of work in Ohio and all around the world, but so I was able to say, oh, well, I've got a friend who's the head of the Ohio Wine Growers Association, Donnie Winchell. And so I put the team in touch with her. She connected them to a grower and said, here's what you would anticipate to pay for the grapes for your product. And so again, this is the kind of extra attention that we're looking to see in the plans and in the activities of the team. So that I thought that was quite good. It was and Donnie, I think, was delighted to have a Swiss team doing an Ohio ice wine and reaching out and learning about the region and so forth, because Donnie's job is to promote the wines of Ohio. Now, if from the outset you're working with an area in a region, whether you live in it, whether you're choosing it for a business or a product differentiation standpoint, this is where the origin of a wine becomes really an important part of the greater plan. Can you actually get perhaps a region helping you to promote your wine? Now, if you're in the Napa Valley, you've got the Napa Valley Vintners Association. Every wine growing region has an organization of growers and vintners and incredible resources for details and information and networking, including the possibility of having certain regions help you to promote the wines. One of my favorite trips over the past few years before China became off limits, I was actually contacted by an organization in northern China, and one of the most remote area I've been to in China. It was just north of the north border of North Korea. We were literally right across the river, and there were, everybody with their guns and whatever. But what they discovered was they had a local grape called Beibinghong, which means red grape, and that the area north of North Korea and very close to Siberia and in that little spit that goes back out to the Sea of Japan, they started making ice wine, and it was a huge value to that city, to the community. It was offering new agricultural opportunities, new employment opportunities, and the city was only 220,000 people. And if you were to compare 220,000 people in China to a Swiss city, that would be a Swiss city with 3 people. But it was fantastic. The people were so excited about that. And I think Chris Cutler can agree that wine in Napa, who cares? Everybody's in the wine business in Napa, the vast majority of it. But you take a place like Ohio, you take a lesser known area where there's a larger economic benefit and put that into a business plan. You know, we're helping to revitalize communities. And this goes in the vision, the mission end of things. You know, what are you doing for sustainability? The easy part is, you know, organic or biodiversity or these kind of things, but actually to look at an economic structure and how that fits and how other people benefit from the business you're doing, which would then give you the support of the community.
There's a big push here in Napa about environmental stewardship and, you know, carbon emissions and your carbon footprint and all those types of things, but really they're not being used as marketing ploys to sell wine. Supposedly they're not, you know, but it's part of being a genuine business that really does care. And I think care is what sells. People out there in the world see that you care in everything that you do, you know, the quality of your product, your attention to detail in the label, the experience that you provide, the environmental stewardship plugs into all that. And I think a lot of people actually mentioned that in this year's competition, bringing up concepts about commitment to sustainability and environmental stewardship and low emissions, and a couple of plans, you know, wanted to have a LEED certified building and zero carbon footprint business. And so that was really interesting to see. And I think, you know, kind of says where heads are at these days.
Great point. And also, and then resisting the urge to make that too much a part of the plan.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It can't be the whole story. That's just
right.
Gotta be a little part of the
It's
story.
a supporting part of it. The first part of a business plan is the ability of somebody to read it to say, wow, I get what I'm a part of. All right. So the internal use of it. I know what we're doing. I know how we're doing it, when we're doing it, and what the expectations are. That's what a business plan does internally. Then the job is to execute on that business plan, revise as necessary to differing conditions and situations, and especially with wine being agriculturally based, all right? But the second thing is that somebody else could read the plan and go, wow, these guys are together. You know, they really have a clear idea of what they're doing and their sense of business purpose, all right? That this is a business. And that all these other things are great, and they may be part of the marketing, they could be part of the value and the attraction for the product, but it's business. And so there were some really great projects, but they really failed to take on the essence of the business requirements. And so it was all about the story, it was all about, you know, contribution and giving back and so forth. All great, but that you can't sustain a business without well, you might be able to, but that would be luck. So the clear business elements are really the important part. All right, anything else? Terrific. Well, thank you all so much. And again, congratulations to the Swiss team. And thank you, Byron. Thank you, Chris, for helping make all of this possible. And we'll be looking forward to a wonderful holiday season and next year. Yeah, Lucas.
I would just have one last question. Or are we gonna get like more detailed feedback on what we have done, like what was good, what could have been made better or differently? And like maybe like more detail on the grading, or just to have like feedback on our project finally.
Well, the challenge is because of the number of projects and so forth. So we sent each of the faculty members the feedback on your project, and then there was also a general feedback. So. Okay. What I would suggest, if you haven't received that, make sure you do, and then sort of sit down and discuss it as a team. because that's another part of the business process. Okay, we've written the business plan. So consider that your business plan is written and you guys are now in business. Now go back and review and see after this discussion and so forth, or show it to other business people to get feedback. We are somewhat limited in how detailed we can get into it. We tried to provide, comments that we could pull out from the grading for each section of it. But for other than that, it's pretty difficult. Did you guys get the feedback that we had sent to your?
Not yet.
Not
Okay,
yet.
great. Yeah. So you might ask her about that. Chris collates and puts that together, and so you should receive that, and it's usually pretty detailed. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for joining on this and for being a part of the program. And if you're a senior and moving on, all the best to you. And perhaps if you're still in your courses, we'll see you next year. But in any case, happy holidays and our gratitude and thanks for everybody who participated.
Thank you all.
very
Happy
much.
holidays.
Thank you.
Okay,
holiday.
thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.